Check. Heart Youth, how we feeling? Hey, you guys look amazing tonight. I don't know if anyone saw John Spooner. Is John Spooner in the house? I just want to have, for some reason, he didn't want to do the catwalk. He's got a Russell Wilson Seahawks jersey on because the Seahawks beat the Browns today. So, hey, we're excited for tonight. Are y'all excited for tonight? It's going to be so good. We have an amazing panel. We're going to wrap up our collection called Got Issues. Before we do that, we're going to do a mic check. We're going to introduce ourselves and let them know what you do around here at Heart Youth. Ready, set, go.
I'm Ben. Hi,
Ben.
And I am the one of the freshman crew leader boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Brenna, and I lead the sophomore girls, and I Come on.
Let's go, softies.
And I dabble in a little bit of worship, which is fun.
I'm Noah.
Yeah, Noah.
I help lead the 6th grade girls, and I am also on worship with this woman right here.
Let's go. Well, we're going to start the panel off with a very serious spiritual question. And how many of y'all remember junior high? Do you remember middle school, or did you just like suppress all? I'm just kidding. We're going to ask a question. What was your most embarrassing moment from junior high? Most embarrassing moment from your middle school years. It's okay. You can be honest in church. Here we go.
It's okay. Do I go first? I think you should. Okay. So basically, so one day, let me run this back. I was in 6th grade, and and there's this one guy who I really didn't like, and he was a bit mean to me. And then I see a girl say something mean to another girl, and the one girl starts crying, and everyone rallies the troops around her, and then they hate on the one girl that said something mean. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is what I need to do. So basically what happened was he said something mean to me, and I was like, that's my cue. I run to the bathroom, like pretending like I'm crying. And an important part is I went to like a mid-school with like 50 other students, and right in front of the bathroom was this courtyard, and the whole school showed up right in front of this door, and I'm like, this is a sticky situation. And I was like, I need to cry. I was like, I need to be in character here, but I couldn't fake cry. So I was like, okay, what do I need to do? I decided with the little swinging doors, I need to hit my head on the swinging doors for the bathroom. I'm like, I'll hit my head hard enough, I'll cry, I'll go out there, and then everyone will love on me. And so I'm like, here's the plan. So I run, and I like jump to hit my head, but I like kind of chicken out, and I like jump in a weird way to where I sprawl around the little swinging door to like catch myself. And the hinges are not very strong, so then the whole thing just broke off. I hit the back of my head, and then they hear this noise, and they open the door to the whole school just looking at me on the ground, like sprawled around this little stool. And I was like, this is a tough one. So then I did cry, and that was probably my most embarrassing experience.
I bet it was. I'm just That's so good.
Oh, man. I don't know if I can top that. Okay, so 5th grade, which I think is technically elementary, but I wanted to share this story anyway. I was down bad for this boy named Aaron Baker, and he was cute, and he had freckles,
Baker.
and he played basketball. And anyway, I was down bad, and I really liked him. And so picture day was coming up, and we didn't have to wear our school uniforms. You could, like, dress down and, you know, show up, show out. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get the cutest outfit ever. I'm going to, like, do my makeup in 5th grade, mind you, and I'm going to do my hair. I'm going to look really cute. And so I like spend all this time, like literally like 3 hours getting ready that morning because I wanted Aaron Baker to notice me. And so we get in the car, and I like have that anxiety of like, wait, is it actually picture day today? Like, is everyone gonna be like not in their uniform? Like, am I gonna be the only one? So we pull up, and I see other kids that are like not in their uniforms. I'm like, okay, slay. It is picture day, and Aaron Baker's gonna notice me. And so I get out of my car, I start walking, and I see him in the distance, and I'm like, yep, this is my moment. And he looks at me, and I'm like, yes. And then he's like, why are you wearing that? And I was like, oh, because it's like picture day. And he goes, yeah, I know it's picture day. Why are you wearing that?
Oh my.
My heart was broken. It was so bad.
No. You deserve better. I'm just kidding.
Okay, so this was in about 8th grade. I was in the pre-algebra honors class with like all my cool 8th grade friends. My crush was in that class, and like outside of school, he was a baseball player. He was like getting scholarships at such a young age, and I was like, okay, like this might be the one, right? And so, for some reason, not for some reason, his dad was our math teacher, and so like for some reason it got out that I had a crush on him. And there was one day when we were just going through our equations. I remember this so vividly. I was sitting in the middle, and he was like sitting all the way up in the front. And the teacher turns around, and he was like, "Oh, Noah, do you have something you want to say to my son?" And I'm all like,
No.
and I literally die in my hoodie, and then like his son's just looking at me like, what?
What?
And then so like for the rest of the year, I just like constantly try to avoid him, but like it was just so weird and so embarrassed, and like I can't get over that. And anyways,
Dang.
yeah.
He ruined it before it got good. That's a bummer. I didn't really have any embarrassing moments, honestly, in junior high. There's just none, honestly. Other than all of 7th grade, it was really embarrassing. I'm just kidding. 8th grade, I'll tell it quick. 8th grade, I had a crush. Did we all have crushes? You didn't have a crush. I'm just kidding. I had a crush in 8th grade, and her name was Molly. Aw. And she played soccer too. Aw. And I was like, we're going to be like the soccer couple. And the girls and the guys team would start practice at the same time. And so during warm-ups and like stretches, you'd be like facing each other, but you'd be like on the opposite side of the field. And so in 8th grade, there's this thing called pantsing. You guys know what like pantsing is? I don't know if like kids still do that. You shouldn't, because it's just not cool. But my buddy thought it'd be funny to pants me, but he accidentally pulled down everything. So, and Molly was on the opposite side, so that was devastating. So yeah, you can pray for me. Still recovering from that traumatic experience. Well, hey, speaking of all of this trauma, okay, we've been in this collection called Got Issues. Can you say Got Issues? Got Issues. We've been in this collection, we've been talking about issues. We've been talking about trust issues, relational issues. We've been talking about forgiveness. Week 1, we talked about daddy issues. We talked about broken relationships within our homes and trust that might be broken there. And then last week, I preached a message titled, I'm hurting, but I'm healing. And we talked about forgiveness and letting go of people and how forgiveness frees you. And so we just thought it would be really cool to wrap up this collection through a conversation of hearing other voices, of just talking about family dynamics growing up, how God has been stretching us, how we want to be different through this collection. So we're just going to have open and honest conversation tonight as a youth ministry. That is our heart. That is our culture, that we really do believe it's okay to not be okay. So we get open about our stuff so that you can be open about yours. And so tonight we're going to be vulnerable with you and just open up a little bit and talk about just how we've seen God work in our hearts through things like this collection of God issues. And so I just want to open it up and ask this question. Tell me a little bit, let us into your world. Tell us about your family dynamic growing up, your relationship with your parents, your relationship with your family. How did that affect you? Let's just open up and kind of talk about that first.
Yeah, I think for my childhood, I was really blessed. I had amazing parents and a great family. They were all very strong Christians. My dad's a pastor. But I grew up kind of feeling a bit of weight on me because I wasn't necessarily the nicest or sweetest kid around. I was a bit rambunctious. And but my sister was like the sweetest, little quietest, like straight A's, super smart student, kid. Everyone would constantly be like, your daughter, to my parents, your daughter's amazing. She's the best. What happened with Ben? Sort of way. and there are some iffy situations, but I think for me, I kind of grew up with a little bit of almost embarrassment for my personality. Almost, I always wanted to be like quiet or more like my sister, but that just wasn't me, and I couldn't fake it for long. But I think God really pulled me out of that to where this is how God made me. but yeah, I think like I was obviously just short story, blessed with amazing parents, but yeah, I think
Yeah, I was not raised in a Christian home by any means. I was raised in a really broken home. My parents were teen parents, and while they were together, there was just a lot of dysfunction at home. And everything kind of culminated to my parents then getting divorced when I was probably 7 years old. And the custody was 50-50. And so half of my life was like this really awesome and devoted dad who just loved me a lot but worked really hard, so wasn't really around. And then the other half of the time, I was with my mom, and she just had a lot of issues that she worked through. She had a lot of mental illness issues. She struggled a lot with substance abuse, with just exploring like witchcraft, and just a lot of like sin and brokenness. And so I kind of lived this split life up until maybe when I was like 11. My mom had met somebody on the internet, a woman who lived in Massachusetts, all the way across the country. And she decided that she was going to drop everything and leave me and my sisters behind and just start a new life across the country. And so this affected me a lot as a young person. I felt really abandoned. I felt this really big desire to be perfect and to show people that I was worthy of love and that I could earn their love and I could be really self-sufficient so I wouldn't bother anybody and I wouldn't depend on anybody. And so it kind of turned me into this person who was really insecure, but you wouldn't know it because I had like a million walls up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so growing up, my mom was a teen mom as well. My biological father had left the picture before I was even born, kind of. Then my mom met my sister's dad, and I had always just considered him my like real dad. I never considered my biological father to be my real dad. So growing up, it was just me, my sister, my mom, and my dad. We grew up in a Christ-centered home. It was just there were just like a lot of struggles trying to get back on our feet, especially from just being teenagers and just having to go straight kind of into the workforce. Um, but however, whenever I would go visit my biological father, it was just a very dysfunctional household. There were things that happened that shouldn't have happened to any child at any age, and it just wasn't dealt right. It was just kind of brushed under the rug. Then within that household, a lot of manipulation began, and looking back, I just like noticed that that's where like a lot of like my people pleasing and like my insecurities began. That led into trust issues, and it very much bled into my relationship with my own parents. There was a lot of like lack of vulnerability and communication, and it was just like an endless cycle of just not being honest, and it very much put a strain on our relationship. And my parents do such a good job about opening up with us, and I just like couldn't really do that because it was just so hard for me to trust adults then. And I just also wanted to kind of like cover up my issues and just like not really deal with them and just kind of move along like as if everything was fine when it wasn't. And even now, I still struggle with that, and it really does affect some relationships because it's like if they're putting in the work, why am I not? Why am I not giving 100%? Like it has to be 50-50. And my parents are just so amazing with showing me that and that it's okay to be able to have issues because I never realized how much similar issues they had until I opened up to them and expressed my issues with them.
Yeah,
But yeah.
that's really good. Week 1, we talked a lot about how when there's broken relationships on earth, a lot of times we can project that onto God. Or if there's been broken trust with an authority figure, whether that be a mom or a dad or someone within authority, what we can do is we can experience that hurt from that authority and we can place that onto God, which can lead to trust issues, not just with the people around us, but it can lead to trust issues with God, and it can lead to the wrong view of who God is. And so I I want to talk a little bit about trust. How have you guys seen these relationships with your family backgrounds? How have you seen these relationships in your family growing up affect the way that you trust God and maybe even trust others?
So for me, it really made me kind of question my purpose and existence a little bit, because I was just like in an endless cycle of just not being honest or vulnerable, and I couldn't give that to God. And so it was just so hard for me to just be like not questioning God, but just like questioning, why does this keep happening to me? And I never understood until like I finally kind of got out of that broken cycle and just realized like, oh, like God's my partner in this. Like I can't do it on my own. Like I have to hold his hand along the way, and he's going to help me. And I've just noticed so much transformation within that, with holding God right next to me. And yeah, but like with other people, um even now kind of I still have like a hard time trusting adults, and I'm working through that, and God knows that. And even when it came to like trusting boys, I would kind of pour out my whole life to them because I just wanted to feel something. I wanted them to feel a certain way about me. And so I would just give out so much of my inner thoughts and just like my feelings that eventually I got like taken advantage of, and it was just kind of used against me. However, when I started walking with God along with that, it's just like showed me like, you don't have to give so much of yourself away. If you trust in me and just trust in my word and trust in my path, you will find that person who will make you feel not the way you felt in the past. But yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I think that especially as a young person, when your experience with the people on earth who are supposed to love you and take care of you, when that experience is really traumatic and really warped and not the way that it was ever intended to be, it really does skew your view of God. And so for a long time, so much of my teenage years were just spent striving, really trying to earn God's love. I ended up, through the brokenness of really just being devastated by my mom leaving, I ended up finding the Lord, which was amazing. And I got surrounded by such great community. But it also became this thing where I wanted to earn God's love so badly. And I wanted to earn the love of the leaders around me. And so I would just strive. I would go to all the Bible studies. I would serve in every single area that I could, and I would share Bible studies and share quotes on my story, and I would do all the things that I thought I was supposed to be doing, but all God wanted me to do was trust in him. I was missing that emotional connection with God because I wasn't being vulnerable with him. I was just doing and trying to earn. So it really, that experience just really warped how I viewed God, and it took a long time to unlearn that.
That's good. I think it doesn't just affect our trust, it also affects how we view ourselves. And so I want to talk about, I think what's cool about every one of us up here is we all have scars. We all have things that we've walked through, but all of us up here have experienced some level of healing in this journey. And I think that's what's great about being able to share tonight. And so I want to talk about how has viewing God as your perfect heavenly Father, understanding like people in this life are going to hurt us. People in this life are going to let us down, because at the end of the day, no person is perfect. So there's going to be a level of pain that can be experienced within relationship. But how has viewing God as your perfect heavenly Father affected how you view yourself?
Yeah, I think for me, and you said this week one. You said God is the perfection of a father, not a reflection of your earthly father. And I think even to go off of what Brenna was saying is we can't earn God's love. We can't strive for it, but it's something that he freely gives us. And I think a great example of this is in the parable of the lost son, when the son finally goes back to the father after all he's did. He's like, I'm going to be a slave. I'm going to be a servant for my dad. We'll just see what happens. And the father sees him from a distance, and the father sprints to the son, being like, I love you, my son. I'm so glad that you're here. And what's interesting, too, is back then, men didn't run. No men would ever be caught running. It was considered unmanly to do that. But the father had so much love for the son that he sprinted after him, embracing him with love. And God the Father is the exact same way. We can't earn God's love. We can't do anything for it, but rather he runs after us, and he just wants us to trust him. He just wants us to know him and to have a relationship with him. And since we know that we can't earn anything for God or to know God, all the pressure's off of us. It's just a relationship with God to where we could grow closer with him.
And just to add like one tiny little thing, because you summed it up perfectly, I think that there's a moment for us when we stop chasing after the love that we so desperately want. You're going to realize that love was chasing you. Like God has always been in pursuit of you, and you don't have to run, you don't have to strive for it. It's just there for you, just like you were saying.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's so much peace knowing everything you need is found in God, right? And that sounds very spiritual. And I would say too, it's okay to look for certain things in a relationship. Like it's not bad to have affirmation. It's not bad to have community or encouragement. These are good things. But the deep things about us, like that hole in your heart, that longing that you have, I talked about it week 1 of like, we have everything that we need for our children, whether that be food or encouragement or protection or safety, we can provide that. But if our kids were to go somewhere else, or if my 3-year-old daughter were to go out of our house searching, she would end up getting hurt. She would end up unfulfilled because everything that she needs is within relationship with her father. And the same thing is true for us. The longing and the searching and all of those things can only be found in relationship with Jesus. And as long as we're searching and going to every other place, we will have issues. We'll have issues with those things. And so shifting gears from some of the trust issues and the brokenness and the identity aspects, I want to talk about forgiveness, because forgiveness was a big thing that we talked about last week. And we talked about how forgiveness is something that honestly frees us. It's a gift that we give ourselves, and we can give it because we've received it. We can forgive because we've been forgiven of so much. And I think the reality is, in a room like this, statistics would say, man, there's a lot of us in this room that have deep hurt, whether it be from a father, whether it be from a mother, someone within our family, maybe it was betrayal from a friend. But at the end of the day, the Bible is very clear that we're called to forgive. And so I want to ask you guys, how has God stretched your faith through the command of forgiveness and giving it? And what does that look like in your life?
Yeah, I have felt really convicted for many years to forgive my mom. And I say many years because for me, in my experience, it wasn't just this one-time decision. It's actually been something that I've had to do almost every day, is make that decision to continue to forgive her. When those memories come up, or when maybe there's a new wound that's been opened, just to continue to walk in forgiveness with her. And I wanted to share a story. When I was, I think, a sophomore in high school, I went to church camp. And there was a sermon that night about forgiveness. And the pastor was just sharing that he really felt that there were some people in the room who had someone specific that they needed to forgive, and that he was just going to open up a moment for you to go outside, make a phone call, and forgive that person. And so my sister and I, we locked eyes in the room, and we just both knew. We both felt it on our spirit, like we're supposed to go call our mom. We're supposed to go forgive her. And so we went out and we decided to respond, and we called our mom. She answered, and we spilled our guts to her. We cried. We told her our hurt, and we told her, like, Mom, this is who Jesus is. This is how we've been forgiven. We love you. We forgive you. And the conversation did not go how I wanted it to go at all. She was really confused why she needed to be forgiven. She kind of just gaslit us and told us certain things didn't happen and said, well, I guess I forgive you guys too, even though we were kids. And it was so gut-wrenching, and I was so confused. I was like, I'm so sure that God told me this, and prompted my sister in the same way, and why didn't this conversation go the way I wanted it to? But through that, God showed me something just so much more valuable. Forgiveness is not really about the other person. It's about the other person, but it's not about the other person. It's not about getting an apology out of them. It's not about getting justice or getting even. It's about your own heart, and it's about letting go of the bitterness that is keeping you captive. And so even though in that moment I didn't get what I wanted from my mom, God gave me so much more than I could have ever hoped for. He gave me freedom. I wasn't held down by bitterness. I wasn't angry anymore. And it's been a process. I've had to continually ask God to give me strength. But the Bible says when we trust in the Lord, He'll renew your strength to continue to forgive and forgive and forgive.
So it was up until last week where you had talked about forgiveness. And looking back and just like reflecting at kind of my whole life, I really thought I had forgiven my biological father and his stepdaughter as well. But I had realized that I was just putting out a facade kind of and just saying that I did forgive them to put everything out on the back burner and just to pretend that it never happened and that I could just move on with my life. However, it left me so bitter inside, and it just also displayed in my actions. I felt like everything I was doing was fake. And it was up until last week where I finally got down on my knees and I said, God, I give this to you. And it was like the heaviest weight off my shoulder, off my chest was lifted. And it's one of those things where you just can't do it without God. Like, there's no like one and done. Like, you have to be able to find those people to be vulnerable with. And like how you said, forgiveness is a process. I'm starting to come to terms with that because I thought it was just like, I say it and I'm done. I say it and then I never have to see this person again. No. With doing that, you have to be able to relive those emotions, okay, this is what they put me through, and I'm deciding to forgive them the way my father forgave me. And so being able to do that is just like, whew, like, not gonna cry up here, but it's just like really life-changing, and it just gives me so much more perspective into forgiving others, whether it's just like my friend took some money, whether it's something traumatic that's happened. You just have to let go and let God at this point. And with that, I'm just gonna pass it back to you, Ryan.
Yeah, that's good. Last question, and we can all kind of give an answer on this. How will this collection impact your future relationships and your future family? A big thing in my heart as we went into this collection was I wanted to see students step into forgiveness and step into addressing some of the things that they've experienced, because the reality is if we don't address it now, we will repeat it and we will pass it down to our kids. And as a youth ministry, when we look out and we see you, we really see the success of our youth ministry, not just as, do you love Jesus right now? As a youth ministry, we're thinking long term. Like, I'm looking out at young men and I'm praying like, man, I hope that they're faithful husbands. I pray that they're present fathers. We look out at the amazing young women in this room and we say, man, we want them to be mothers who pray for their children, who lead their family, who love their family, who serve their family. And that's our heart. So part of that is thinking about getting a vision for your future. And so coming out of this collection, I even want you guys to think about this question as well, but how will this collection impact your future relationships and your future family?
For me, when I kind of read this question, like kind of talking about almost generational sin, it kind of made me think about my dad and my dad's relationship with his dad. And I almost feel like my life is a testimony of the son of someone who decided it stops with them. So my grandpa and my grandpa's dad and so on, and their dad, they were all not good fathers. They were all they all cheated on their wives. They were all distant from their family, and that happened with my dad's dad. And so my dad grew up with a divorced parents, a dad who cheated on his wife, a dad who moved away, who only cared about partying or making money, and my dad was the person to say, it stops with me. And because of my dad's decision to say that it stops with me, I don't have to feel a life bound by sin. I have an example of a father who loves God and loves his wife and loves his family, so that I could look at my dad and say, that's who I want to be. I want to be like my father. I want to love my wife well. I want to love my family well. And because of his decision, I'm set free from my grandpa's mistakes.
Yeah, this collection, it was convicting and encouraging to me, but it just really reminded me that as I continue to walk in obedience and forgiveness, I am creating a legacy for my little boy of forgiveness. It was the hurt that my mom caused me that led me to the Lord, but it's going to be the love that Jesus gave me that's going to lead my son to the Lord. And so that's just my prayer, is that it would end with me, and that my little boy would know the Lord because of his mercy on my life.
For me, I would say just breaking that cycle of just putting up a facade and pretending everything's okay. I look back at my family and looking back at just the way my mom and her cousins grew up, it was just kind of like, we don't have problems. We don't have issues. We're fine. But my parents are breaking that stigma of, we do have issues. We do have problems. And me being the oldest out of 8, I'm trying to also set that example with my parents to let my siblings know that it's okay to have issues. It's okay if you're mad at mom and dad one day. Just be open and just honestly just be Christ-centered about it. And to be able to like watch my little siblings grow up every morning and just like watch them read their little devotional, or just like sit in the living room while they're getting ready for school and just like singing praise the Lord all the time. It's just like, it's so amazing how God can transform one whole family by breaking a generational curse and by turning to him. And that's really what this collection has been about for me.
Let's go. And no, I just want to speak into you because it's been so cool to see how you have allowed God to do that in your life. And when we were even thinking about this panel tonight, we were like, we want to have a student speak. And immediately the Holy Spirit just dropped Noah, because you haven't had a perfect life. You've experienced a lot of pain, a lot of things that weren't fair, and yet you've said, man, it wasn't fair, but it's my responsibility to take to the Lord and trust God with, and you are an amazing older sister. I see the way that your siblings look up to you, and I just want to speak life into you, that you're not just called to be a leader later on in life, you're called to be a leader right now in your home, and you have people looking up to you in your home, and so I just want to say I'm so proud of you, and it's cool to see you walking that out in your life. And so really, really quick, let's do this. Let's make some noise for our amazing panelists. You guys did so good. Thank you guys. We're gonna end tonight just a little bit differently. As we were thinking through the end of this collection, we wanted to have a practical next step for you, and we wanted to have a physical step of a spiritual or maybe even emotional decision that you might want to make tonight. Maybe you've been here the last 2 weeks and you've been hearing about forgiveness. You've been hearing about brokenness in families. Maybe tonight is the first time you've been here during this collection, and I just want to say tonight this invitation is open to every student in the room. And that is, like Brenna talked about, I really believe there's a lot of us in this room, we have someone in our life we need to forgive. We have a person, maybe it's multiple people, but there's someone in your life that has hurt you, has caused pain towards you, and tonight God is calling you to forgive. And like Noah said, it might be a process. We talked about it, about sometimes it's a head decision before it's a heart decision. It's, I know I'm going to forgive because it's the right thing, and day after day I'm going to submit that back to the Father. But tonight, when you walked into the room and when you went to grab a seat, you probably saw a card on your chair. And really what this is just 2 boxes. It's talking about the pain that you've experienced and what's keeping you from forgiveness. And it asks you the question, who is it that you're supposed to forgive? And so tonight, we're going to respond in worship with just 2 songs. And so the team is going to begin to play. And as they play, what I want to do is I want to invite you to really reflect. Reflect on what was hitting with you tonight. Maybe it is hurt within family. Maybe it was betrayal from a friend and you need to forgive. And tonight, what I'm going to ask you to boldly do is to give what God has so graciously given to you. Give to others, give to that person what it is that God has given to you. The Bible talks about how his mercies are new every day for us. So God has forgiven us of so much, and yet we hold people bound by unforgiveness. And the reality is that bitterness doesn't hurt them, it just hurts us. And tonight, I think the call is for freedom in this room. It's for you to experience true freedom as you've chosen to forgive. Maybe last week you decided, man, this is the person I'm going to forgive. Tonight, I want to call you to action. Don't just talk about it, be about it. I want you to come up when you're ready, and I want you to find a space at this altar. We have pens kind of spread out, and I want you to write down, who is it that God is asking you to forgive? Could be one person, it could be multiple people. There's also a space that talks about what's keeping you from forgiving them right now. What is some of that pain? After you come up during worship and you write those things out, I want to invite you to just leave it in this bin. If you were here last week, you saw the sermon illustration of the reality is we cannot forgive without surrender. So we have to pour our broken pieces back into the one who knows all of it. And so tonight, I almost want you to imagine that you're surrendering those broken pieces. You're surrendering that pain. And maybe it's pain you've surrendered to God before, but tonight he's like, I want you to resurrender that pain. I want you to remind your soul, your heart, yourself that you're forgiving that person. And so the team is going to play. We're going to go into a song of worship. And when you feel led, when you feel ready, we want to invite you to just come up to the front, write down on the card what it is, and then just drop it in the bin. While we're doing that, I just want to invite you, will you just stand up to your feet all across this room? Will you stand up to your feet? Maybe even now you want to make your way up to the front to begin writing on these cards. I want to pray a prayer of blessing over you as we respond in this way. God, I lift up every young person in this room. God, I pray that you would give us the faith to forgive. I pray that Heart Youth would be marked by freedom, that we would not hold people bound based on the things that they've done to us, but God, that we would release them, that we would offer forgiveness, that we would give what it is that we've received from you. God, tonight we find freedom as we let go of pain, as we let go of people. And it doesn't mean that the pain didn't happen. It doesn't mean that the hurt wasn't there. It just means we're not holding on to it anymore. And God, we surrender it to you. As you're responding and as you're writing, I just want to invite you, after you write, man, just stay up towards the front. We're going to end with a time of worship. Let's lean in and let's worship God in this place. When you feel ready, let's respond.